You never know what someone's going through. So we look for the best in each other.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of Beef Season 2. I'm David Chen. Joining me today for this conversation about Beef, he is a culture critic whose work has appeared at NPR, The Washington Post, and The Atlantic. Chris Klimek, welcome for the first time to Decoding TV.
Yes, Dave. Well, I'm always telling people you don't just slap together a bespoke bed and breakfast overnight. So glad to be here at last.
Welcome to the podcast, Chris. So happy to have you. And so excited to be here today to talk about Beef Season 2. Now, just to be upfront, I have seen Beef Season 1. Chris has not, but we've both seen all 8 episodes of Beef Season 2. And we're going to talk about our overall thoughts on the show and then dive into what happened later in the season a bit later on in this podcast. But let's talk about what is the deal with Beef Season 2. In Beef Season 2, country club employees Ashley, played by Cailee Spaeny, and Austin, played by Charles Melton, witness a vicious fight between their boss, Josh, Oscar Isaac, and his wife, Lindsay, played by Carrie Mulligan. And they decide to leverage it to get ahead. In addition, turns out, by the way, Josh and Lindsay have some money problems, and Josh may or may not have been secretly stealing from the club this entire time. Meanwhile, the country club is navigating the process of being acquired by Chairwoman Park, played by Yuh-jung, a billionaire who's married to a plastic surgeon played by Sung Kang-ho, who may have some of his own legal problems that we will find out about later on in the season. The Monte Vista Point Country Club might be a good way for Chairwoman Park to solve some of her problems. Anyway, that is the just overall the basics of basics about Beef Season 2. We'll talk more about some of the stuff that happens, but first, let's just talk about overall thoughts. Chris, what did you think of the show?
Yeah, so I loved it. I mean, I was enraptured from the beginning. I thought what initially struck me in the just the first episode is some maybe too blunt satire kind of drew me in more as I felt like getting past my sort of what struck me as like an initial impulse on the part of the writer to sort of mock some of these characters. You get the more human side, the more interior kind of element of their characters, which then makes the satire, I think, actually funnier and also gives it an element of pathos as it goes along. A big surprise for me. Although I have not seen, as you mentioned, the previous season of Beef, I did spend 4 years living in Ventura County, California, where I did not know that this season was set. So I think the Monte Vista Country Club is fictional, but certainly Ventura County Medical Center. That's where my partner at the time was working during her residency. That's where the Cailee Spaeny character goes at one point to have an injury treated. That becomes a plot point that we may get into. The dealing with the levels of access to medical care for the haves and the have-nots, just which of course is the overall theme, I think, of this season, economic justice, right? And also a lot of the action is in Ojai, where I certainly couldn't afford to live there, but took a lot of day trips to Ojai back in the early 2000s. So a lot of recognizable locations for me in this season.
My overall thoughts on Beef Season 2 are that it started brilliantly. I think Lee Sung-jin is the mastermind behind Beef Seasons 1 and 2, and something that's great about both seasons is, first of all, these are extremely well-drawn characters. Yeah. I think they're all very believable. You can kind of, if you don't know someone like that, you can easily imagine that person exists. And the cast of both seasons is amazing. It's like every single character feels like, oh, wow, they nailed the casting with that particular character. And so Beef Season 2, I think, mirrored Beef Season 1 in many ways. It's obviously the themes are a little bit different. There's two couples that are kind of like clashing against each other in Beef Season 2. Was not the case with Beef Season 1, really. It was kind of just really a Stephen Yeun versus Ali Wong type situation. And as you said, it does focus on economic justice, social justice, and things like that. And so I was really taken with the show in Season 2 as well, just really engrossed by the show. And then we get to the final few episodes of the show, and I watched the entire series with my wife, and we both were very, very disappointed by the end. I think the final half of the show leans heavily into I would just describe them as ludicrous plot developments that the opening few episodes are very grounded in reality. Like it's like, oh, I can imagine the setting. As you said, Chris, you've been to these locations. Like you can imagine people behaving like that. And then there is this kind of, I'll just vaguely describe it as international intrigue that happens in the show that just feels, in my opinion, pretty out of place. And even that would be forgivable if I felt like it moved along the character developments or these relationships between the characters in a really nice way. But I don't really feel like it did that in a plausible fashion. So while I thought the first, I'm going to say like 5 episodes of the 8 episodes were excellent and amazing, and there's going to be a lot of memes coming out of these episodes, and people will be talking about a lot of these episodes. I just felt the way that it ended was very disappointing. Was it worth the journey still? Probably, but man, I just I really was not a fan of how the show ended. So
I mean, those
are my overall thoughts. Yeah.
We're used to expansive sagas that sometimes end on a somewhat deflating note, right? That's not an uncommon storytelling problem.
Yeah. And does that negate the value of the entire work? Probably not.
No, and certainly not in this case. I don't think. I mean, one thing I think that 8th episode is, I mean, it is the longest of the 8 by a fairly substantial margin. Also, while the earlier episodes do expand the canvas a little bit as the connection between Chairman Park and her ownership interest in the country club become clear, we do get some scenes in Seoul prior to that final episode, but much of the action of that last episode, we're actually in Seoul, right? It's like, let's go to an international location, let's give this some scope and scale, and about the halfway point where we actually get to this long take action scene that's made to look like a oneer, like you might see in John Wick or Daredevil, the streaming series Daredevil. I was wondering, I was like, I feel like we have gone from satirizing American life and capitalism to satirizing other streaming series, which is a narrower and less interesting target.
Well, since we're fully in spoilers already, Chris, let's talk about some of the developments. I mean, I'll say that to start with, I think just the relationship between Oscar Isaac and Carrie Mulligan, aka Josh and Lindsay, is really well depicted. I think, I think about marriage counselors called the Gottmans. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but like they're very well known. Their research is legendary and widely well regarded as far as I can tell. But they're not like the masters of everything, but like they are one school of marital counseling, and they have this concept called like the 4 horsemen of like the marriage. They won a lot of acclaim for being able to observe a married couple for 30 minutes and being able to tell with high levels of accuracy whether they would be divorced.
Okay, yes, I have heard of these counselors. Yes,
right, yeah. and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but they're like, what are the big signs that the marriage is going to end? And the biggest one of those horsemen is contempt. And I felt like you just really felt right from the beginning that these two people have contempt for each other, and therefore that in many ways the marriage is doomed. And that comes out it doesn't come out in like super obvious ways necessarily. It comes out like subtle things that they say, things that they randomly comment on, expressions, things like that. But I just thought that was a wonderful depiction of like that kind of relationship that we've probably all witnessed at some point in our lives.
Yes, you're overhearing the argument, and or something takes a turn at the dinner party or something, and you just wish you could be anywhere else and not witnessing this. I mean, we do have 2 tremendous actors in the service of a great writer here, but there's also this extra textual element in this case, because I'm aware of at least 2 previous occasions in which Oscar Isaac and Carrie Mulligan have played a troubled couple. The first is in Drive, where Isaac was the ex-con who is released, and
Right.
he's and then 2 years after that, Inside Llewyn Davis, I think perhaps
Yeah.
the most underrated Cohen's joint,
Right.
where his character.
What is it about them that likes playing doomed couples? I don't understand.
I don't know, but it really, I mean, they are certainly simpatico in that antagonistic way. And where,
But in the difference is in this series, she gets to use her natural British accent, which is nice.
that was an attraction for me. Not the only example I could think of, but yes, I am so used to seeing Carrie Mulligan play Americans that I really delighted. Particularly when we have the other couple, the Cailee Spaeny, Charles Melton duo that's offered in contrast to them. They don't really. I mean, I think they're supposed to be. They've grown up around the country club working. This is a first job for most of them, right? So we think they're basically natives or have grown up in Southern California, and they don't really try to affect any kind of a regional accent for that. But the Mulligan accent is at its most superciliously British when she feels attacked by those two characters, which and that brought in and just an element to those scenes that I really enjoyed.
What did you think of the Ashley Austin relationship? Did this strike you as a believable relationship? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, another thing that we're doing here is drawing a contrast between Gen Z and millennials, right?
Right.
I mean, because Mulligan and Isaac, I think, are basically playing their real life ages in these characters.
Yeah.
She says she's 39 at one point, and he's somewhere in his 40s. I think, Melton is 35, right? So, I think he's playing a little younger than
he's playing someone in his late 20s. I think at most.
Actually is. But trying to draw these clear distinctions between how couples of different generations interact. I thought was really smart, especially in the way that our younger couple. It's clearly it's first love for both of them. So they're super vulnerable and overprotective around one another. And they seem to have a healthier dynamic. They seem to be checking in with one another constantly, and to the point that we do see in real time how this becomes its own sort of poisonous element, right? Because you do also have to have enough trust in one another that there's some mutual privacy in a successful partnership. So perhaps we see one relationship that has too much of that trust and one that has not enough. But I did just in the contrast between these couples of different generations was another element that I thought was really strong here.
Yeah, I thought that when Carrie Mulligan's character talks about how the couples that don't fight, that's actually a really bad sign, which, by the way, is something David Chen, agree with. I think that in general, maybe there's like some chosen couples out there that like they never fight, but I think in general, it is a healthy thing to have conflicts and also resolve them and come out like a stronger couple as a result of that. I think that is a normal, healthy process.
I think, and please, I don't want to mispronounce the name of our writer director. Can you say it again, please, so that I get it?
Yeah,
right?
Lee Sung-jin.
Yeah, Lee Sung-jin. So I think one of the things he does that is so masterful here in the way really good writing will achieve more than one thing within a line, within a scene. So like I think it's the first episode when the Spaeny character goes to the Mulligan character, basically to ask if she's okay, because she is videoed this fight between her and Isaac that certainly it has more of the appearance of a violent, potentially dangerous confrontation than either of them were aware of. Right, like they're much more worried about the video getting out than they are of the fact of this fight having occurred. So she is what's the Spainy character is, her name is Ashley, yes, thank you. Right, so she really has, one, she seems to sort of want to sincerely check in on Lindsay, because she assumes that Lindsay is purely the victim in this enterprise. But the possibility of blackmail has already kind of introduced itself into this scenario. And in the course of trying to beat that back, Lindsay, again, her British accent at its sharpest and most British in this scene, she's trying to swat down this younger, less sophisticated person's attempt to get over on her, but she's also accidentally giving legitimately valuable relationship advice, because
Right. I think you're referring to Austin. Austin's the first person that has the confrontation with her.
Oh,
at her
okay.
house.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
I am conflating two different scenes.
Yeah,
which,
because later on, Lindsay and Ashley connect. But yeah,
yeah.
but yes,
right. I just mean like in the point of trying to stave off someone's power play by accidentally giving them advice that is still good advice.
So early. Well, you've got a good fight coming. And when it does come, you two are going to be stronger for it.
Which I think what Lindsay says is that I think that's when either Ashley or Austin says we never fight. And
yes,
Austin
Austin says it. Yeah.
And Lindsay's like, well, that's a problem. You're
right.
that first big fight is going to tell you whether your relationship is going to go the distance or not. Which again, that is the same thing that someone who a loving friend, relative, counselor, whomever who really did have your best interest in mind would probably tell you.
Yeah. By the way, one of my favorite things about the first episode of the show is there's a moment when they're driving home from the country club, and then they get a call from the woman, the woman who's working at the country club, and Oscar Isaac's character wants to take it, and Carrie Mulligan's character doesn't. And if he had just taken the call, many of the events of the show would never have occurred. Which I really like that this like kind of one decision,
yes,
led to this cascading impact, because basically then they would have said, hey, your wallet's left behind here, and then he said, oh okay, I'll turn around right now, or I'll pick it up tomorrow, or whatever.
Sure.
But because that one thing doesn't occur, then Ashley and Austin go to the house, they make the video, it causes all this other stuff to happen, and the fact of the matter is that Josh was already embezzling lots of money from the country club, and Chairwoman Park would have had that problem anyway. And so, probably some of the stuff still would have happened, but it definitely would not have happened in the same way. So I really like that kind of sliding doors moment in the very first episode.
Yeah, sure. If the Star Destroyer had just taken the shot at that escape pod, Dave, even though there were no life forms aboard,
It's so true.
It would have been it would not have been a trilogy, if we can say
it's
that.
So true.
But,
it's so true.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the original sin of this season, is including Chairwoman Park and her husband, Surgeon Kim. Now, look, Lee Sung-jin, by the way, achieved massive success with Beef Season 1. You didn't see it, but it was a huge deal. It won many awards, and dozens and dozens and dozens.
I'm realizing retroactively all of the critical acclaim that I had mistakenly assigned in my mind to Sausage Party was in fact Beef Season 1. I think I can be forgiven for conflating.
I'm glad you actually finally rectified that. Yes. But anyway, and so look, you come out of Beef Season 1, you probably have a ton more resources, a ton more latitude. And if you're Lee Sung-jin, maybe you want to work with Sung Kang-ho and Yuh-jung, who is another critically acclaimed. I mean, these are both critically acclaimed Korean actors, and you want to get them into the show somehow, And I get that. I understand if I won 50 awards, and it's hey, what do you want to make next, David? I'd probably figure out a way to get people that I like into the show that I'm making, whether it made sense or not. And I think that the original sin of this season is including these characters, because as much as I love to see some of the great Korean actors that are alive today in a hit Netflix streaming show, I love that. I really think that it takes away from how grounded and relatable the show is, and it's not because they're Asian. Obviously, I'm Asian. It's because it just kind of gives again this whole this layer of international intrigue, whereas season 1 of Beef was for the most part, I feel more grounded. Yes, there were some ultra mega rich people in Beef as well, Beef Season 1 as well, but it felt like the show bit off a little bit more than it could chew by expanding the aperture out to there's this whole international conspiracy to suppress this murder that happened at Dr. Kim's surgery place. That's me. I mean, you said you love the show like all the way
I
through.
did,
So
no,
I'm
I
curious,
did
like,
no. I mean, I certainly like. I do agree that the finale is not as though it doesn't quite stick the landing, right? It doesn't resolve as successfully as it initiates and builds. And I think maybe I'm a little bit too enamored of this idea of like sort of escalating rings of conspiracy. Basically,
mhm.
each the character at each rung can only perceive of being wronged by the people immediately above them, right? But everyone is under somebody's thumb, right? I'm to quote Bob Dylan here, like gotta serve somebody, right? And even the general manager of the club, who to Austin and Ashley seems all powerful. It's like, I mean, he's drowning in debt. He's entirely
Right,
subject to
right.
and once Chairwoman Park finds out what he's up to, and decides it's in her interest to kind of sort of to some extent let him get away with it, at least for as long as it's useful to her. I mean, I think you could probably have achieved that without elucidating the specifics of the conspiracy as thoroughly as this does. I agree with you that
Yeah.
that might be a weakness. But maybe it's it's sort of like one battle after another, right? Where it's really examining how like there are various sinister
Yeah.
forces.
Yeah.
There's the militaristic ICE equivalent with a crooked leader, and above him it's the the white supremacist Christmas adventurers, and again, just like no. This is not a revelation, right? That most victimizers are themselves victims, but this series still made that feel fresh and new in present for a way that I think is not entirely but predominantly successful.
I think that's a great point, Chris. And I was mostly on board with it for the first part of the Chairwoman Park
Mhm.
stuff, because I think the show is really trying to make a point about late stage capitalism, right? And
Yeah.
literally everything being some kind of scam. I think that's kind
Mm.
of what one of the points I took away is, oh yeah, like you said, you think Josh and Lindsay are successful, but yeah, their seeming success is a facade.
Yeah. I mean,
I
they
mean, if
had
you
dinner
can't
with
come up
Bono, but still, they're still in
if you
trouble.
can't come up with enough money to Venmo Michael Phelps 2 days in a row,
Oh boy.
then how rich can you be, really?
Right.
I mean, and the thing is, I think Josh also drives a Porsche, right? And so it's like they're clearly spending beyond their means, right, in a
Yeah.
huge way, and to maintain appearances. And that's in fact what Chairwoman Park is doing as well, right? She's in a terrible spot with her second husband that she married because she wanted to have fun, and then he kills someone on the surgery table.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, we need to cover this up, but like in order to move the money around, we need to have a place that we can like launder it, basically. And they use the country club to do that. And so it's like, oh, yes, this surgeon who you think is hugely successful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is also a facade. Like everything is just a facade. It's hiding some deeply corrupt element underneath. And I did appreciate that. I think so. I think that was one of the points that the show was making, and I was on board with it for the first like 5 or 6 episodes. But then when the show needs to like contrive a way to get everyone to South Korea at the end, and then like you said, have this big action scene and do this other stuff, like I don't know. By then I'm just like, this is so we are so far away from what I think is the core essence of the series, which is just these two parties having beef.
Yeah.
Which is like the core idea of the series. It certainly was of season 1. And so it just felt so unbelievable by the end that I was disengaged. That said, I did like the message of what it was trying to say,
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it is fascinating that we're dealing with a storytelling format that didn't exist a generation ago, right? Something that's like the perfect hybrid between an overextended 26 episode season of like linear television from generations ago, or a 2 to 2.5 hour feature film, right? And I kept thinking about The Bonfire of the Vanities watching this, the Tom Wolfe novel, famously adapted into a terrible 1990 movie by Brian De Palma. I think that may actually have been rebooted as a streaming series. I mean, certainly it seems to warrant that treatment. But I keep thinking about how just the more expansive format allows us to tell a multi-layered, more sophisticated story like that, where we can have, let the metaphors fully express themselves, let the character arcs fully play themselves out. But we don't need to, so because of that, like, we don't need to stick to the old, like, 3-act structure, right? That gives us a spectacle of an ending. Right? Like, it's okay to have a quiet resolution. It can be more powerful. And I think none of the moments that I'm going to carry away with me from this season are from that final episode. I don't think, the revelations are quieter. It's in the two-hander scenes. I do want to, if we can get specific about something,
let's talk about. Go
okay.
ahead. What was the point you were going to bring up?
The scene of Chairwoman Park's final scene of the series, where she
before we do that, I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, I just did want to give a shout out to the hospital episode, which I thought was really interesting. Beef season 1 had some strains of surrealism to them that I thought were pretty great and memorable. And I thought that the hospital focused episode of Beef season 2, where she's trying to get admitted and she loses an ovary, and you kind of see this kind of dystopian vision. It's basically the Pit from the perspective of the patients.
Yes, and
again, where you're trying to get into this place and you're dying out in these chairs. So I just thought that was like a really effective episode that was quite different than any of the other episodes. Right. I wanted to highlight that before we get to the ending. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, certainly I have been in the position of trying to game out, what would be the best time for me to go to the emergency room? As though it's like, well, I hate to go to the supermarket during peak hours, it's like, and certainly I've tried. I was like, well, it's a weekend, so if I get there after like 6 p.m., like, it's all over. And, you can never judge those things correctly if you're not one of the haves. Yes, that I don't know where they shot that, but certainly the location was supposed to be Ventura County Medical Center, which I have intimate familiarity with. We do see that when Ashley and Austin are in the waiting room expressing what is, in Austin's phrase, a broken system faux show. There was a storytelling point there. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're fully spoiling things, right? We've agreed there, so we can. Okay, so we've established that Ashley has a condition that may threaten her future fertility. She has an ovary is misaligned or something, or there's a right. It's
torsion.
Yes, thank you. Now there's this whole negotiation with the Oscar Isaac character Josh, right? Who's basically she still has the leverage of this video of his argument from the first episode. So he's like, this is, well, I can call one of my many physician friends for you. They'll see you right away. And all you got to do is delete the backups of that video.
Delete the backup videos.
Right. Yeah. Right. And they, that's sort of unresolved. And then eventually one of his doctor pals does show up. Now, are we, I whether or not this is the fact of what actually happens, I think we're meant to see it is Ashley's perception that the reason she loses that ovary is because of the long wait to be seen, right? If only she had gotten immediate care, right? And I mean, I don't know, if that is a situation where the 8 hours or whatever that she is in the waiting room would have made a difference or not. I mean, I guess all that really matters is that that's how Ashley sees it. So she is now motivated to escalate this by yet another layer.
Yes, in a rather very disgusting scene, actually, we should point out. But that's the kind of thing, again, that was really well that people reacted really well to in Beef season 1, which is like you have this rivalry that kind of and things escalate in a way that you don't even, if you're one of the parties, you're not even Oscar Isaac doesn't want Cailee Spaeny's character to lose an ovary. He's just trying to make her a little uncomfortable, right? And so, but the thing is, you get in these rivalries, and sometimes things escalate to the point where they spin out of control. And
Right.
I thought that was classic beef, basically. That
Yeah,
whole
and I mean
situation.
that is there's also the generational element there too, right? Where one thing is like this, Josh, who's just getting to the age where like his morning jogs are a little more painful and he can't party like he used to and stuff. And it's like it's impossible for him to think that Ashley in her early 20s might actually have a severe medical condition that requires immediate treatment.
So let's talk about the ending of the show, right? In the final episode of the show, essentially all parties converge in South Korea with Chairwoman Park, and Chairwoman Park captures everyone, basically.
Yep.
She ends up capturing everyone. I'm going to read this plot summary from Wikipedia as to what happens while everyone is in captivity. While in captivity, Josh and Lindsay reconcile. Austin and Ashley argue again, with Austin wanting to go to the police and Ashley resisting. Ashley gives Austin the hidden drive she stole. Austin escapes and heads for the police. By the way, I guess super easy, barely an inconvenience. Like he's just like, oh yeah, let's just go through the seal. I felt the end was very, very silly. Anyway, okay. Austin escapes and heads for the police, but after sensing hesitation in Eunice's voice during a phone call, he instead offers the drive to Park in exchange for freedom. Josh is arrested for embezzlement. Dr. Kim's death is ruled a suicide, and Park avoids punishment. Austin and Ashley reconcile. 8 years later, Ashley is the new general manager of the club while she and Austin are married with a child, though tensions remain between them. After his release, Josh chooses not to contact Lindsay. Lindsay has returned to London and had a child. Park, still unpunished, visits the grave of her first husband and admits that wealth cannot buy time and reflects on her loneliness. The episode closes with an overhead view modeled on Samsara, reflecting the characters' repeated patterns and fates, end quote. We'll talk a little bit more about the Samsara stuff in a little bit, but yeah, I have to say I found several elements of this baffling, and not that I was confused what was happening, but just like I don't understand why the show decided to go this way. Like, for one thing, Austin being able to escape super easily just felt very silly. The whole scene at the end with it turns out, by the way, Ashley and Austin are not only took Josh and Lindsay's place metaphorically, they took it literally. So this is right. The I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards meme, like brought to life in the final epilogue of the show 8 years later. Go ahead.
Well, no, and we haven't even addressed the character of Eunice yet, who would seem to have a right.
Why would we when the show pays no attention to this character? By the way, who, as far as we can tell, is the most accomplished, intelligent, and decent human out of all the characters in the show. Fuck her. Like, we don't need to give her an ending at all.
Right, but she's also right. But I mean, the fact that when in her hour of need, she turns to Austin, who whose talent as a fuck up has been amply demonstrated at this point. And I was thinking, I was like, well, of course she's playing him. She knows that he has this massive crush on her, and he's not sophisticated enough to recognize when he's being played. And then but that just kind of dangles, right? I mean, she's left there as a threat to the relationship between Austin and Ashley, which I think at this point, like, we're maybe in one of the weird reversals of that you tell me, and I believe you, is classic beef. Like, we're now maybe rooting for Josh and Lindsay to reconcile more than Ashley and Austin, which is never where I thought we would end up. But yeah, like Austin wants to go off with Eunice, and she's kind of just stringing him along until he gets it's the evidence of the God. I'm trying to remember. Okay, it's a copy of Chairman Park's phone, right, which has the evidence of her crimes.
Of her crimes.
Yes,
right? or of her crimes to cover up Surgeon Kim's killing,
right, which
I
is
guess,
another thing. It's like, what we she says, like, midway through the season, like, I only remarried for companionship, right? And now this guy is more trouble than he's worth. The surgeon, it is actually a stray bullet from one of her security goons that kills him, right? In that final episode, correct, yeah. And again, like, or maybe in a shot that found its intended mark. That's also a little vague. Yeah, that's the, I don't know, for a show that really seemed to value symmetry ultimately above believable resolution for the characters, as you're saying, by the the fact that we have Ashley and Austin in the very positions that Josh and Lindsay were in the first episode. Yeah, that was a point of confusion for sure.
The point of confusion being what happened to Eunice. Where's Eunice?
Yes,
as it were. That's my question.
I know. Where is
Eunice
Poochie and where is Eunice?
Poochie went. Yeah, Eunice went to her home planet
and died on the journey. Yeah.
I mean, it's very likely she's dead. I think Austin sold her out, and so it's very likely she's dead. You know, and her death has been covered up. But I don't think, as far as I know, there's no concrete evidence either way of anything that happens to Eunice.
So do we think that Ashley and Austin survived all this because Chairwoman Park has just concluded that they're too dumb to present any kind of a threat to her?
Absolutely. You know, I think, yeah. And obviously, Oscar Isaac's character is condemned to take the fall. I was actually somewhat moved by him taking the blame and kind of trying to make sure Lindsay got out okay. You know, what I took away from that was that even if you're not meant to be with someone, there can still be some meaningful love there, and some kind of, and some of it might be like sacrificial love that like wants to make sacrifices for this other person, even if they're not like your person, your lifelong partner. There's still something there, and that's what I think we saw with the Oscar Isaac character at the end taking the blame. Now, then we cut to 8 years later, and we see Oscar Isaac in jail, and he's still acting in the GM way, and that's entertaining and interesting.
Sure, right. He's
but then
wheeling
we get
and
the
dealing.
Cut to Lindsay. Yeah. Right, wheeling and dealing, right. And then we get the cut to Lindsay, and it's like, what was the deal with that? Like, you know, we see her new husband who's in London, I guess, and you know, we see their kid for a few seconds, and it's like, and I guess the idea is just Lindsay lived happily ever after and still thinks about Josh a little bit. You know, it's
right.
I was a little bit confused as to what did you make of Lindsay's ending?
I mean, because she does, like, once Josh cuts the deal where he's like, I'm going to take the, you know, my only condition is that, you know, Lindsay is in the clear.
Lindsay
she goes free. I'll take the rap for all of it. Which, you know, for some reason, Chairman Park, I guess, chooses to honor that deal, which, like, why would she? But she does explicitly say to him, I'll wait for you. Right. There is a, right. Which again, like, people say things like that all the time, and you know, but right. Human hearts are I guess frail it's to show that
she didn't wait for him, but it also, like, that seems like a really reasonable thing for her to not do.
No,
right.
Of course.
Because
yes. And,
because it's been 8 years, and also, like, they expressed a lot of hateful sentiments about each other, and the divorce papers were basically finalized at the time. You know, so it's like, I never really thought that it was a realistic scenario that she'd wait.
No, but I mean, no, the choice that's more interesting to me is that we're explicitly shown that she did not, right? Like, and that's her fate could certainly be left ambiguous. There are plenty of other things that are left ambiguous, but we're told very clearly, nope, she went and remarried. She is watching the newly released Josh speak to a reporter on an iPad or something in a way that's a little furtive. It's almost like she doesn't want her new husband to see this, and it's like, does this guy not know her history? These, you know, certainly that would call that relationship into question, right? Because that's a lot of baggage to bring into your next relationship with you.
Yeah. No, it's a good point that it's like, oh yeah, she didn't end up waiting for him, but like, so what? Like, what point are you trying to make with that? You know, like what is that? Hey, guess even though I, the show creator, convinced you that maybe they did have something good between them, actually they didn't. It's like, okay, I mean, like, I was already there 2 episodes ago. You know, like,
I mean, the other thing we haven't. I mean, we touched on the point about Ashley's imperiled ovary and all that, but I mean, it pretty quickly becomes like, even though she and Austin are, you know, mid-20s, you know, could not be more financially insecure, which like I guess it's when she learns of this condition that makes her want to have a child all the more, and have a child immediately, right? Which Austin is clearly not ready to do. You know, and I mean, maybe it's not that, like, the child that we see at the 8 years later, Coda is very young, right? That child is not 8 years old. So clearly that happened a bit later. You know, there's maybe a cynical point about the children, you know, becoming the glue in a relationship that might other ways separate itself, right? And certainly we do have a don't Josh and Lindsay, we hear them talk about why they chose not to have kids, or is that purely when Lindsay is talking to Ashley? I can't remember.
I think it's Lindsay talking to Ashley, and she says they tried and it didn't work out, and you know, and that actually probably is a better thing that they didn't, because they weren't meant to be together in the first place. But yeah, I will say that the scene at the fertility clinic was, I have to say, deeply upsetting, where you see Austin produce the material and then like squeeze sanitizer into it. It's like, there's something that really upset me about that, just because it's a lot of trouble to do that whole process, you know, for both parties, right? For both parties. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, this is idiotic, but there was a part of my brain that was like, oh, would that work? Like diluting semen with hand sanitizer? Is that,
maybe
is that
they
a thing?
didn't, maybe some of the semen got away. And
right.
They didn't, you know, they didn't need to. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So the very end, let's get to the very, very end.
Okay.
Now, you know, Netflix, by the way, has mastered some of the SEO. So if you look for beef ending explained, you'll find an article from Netflix. Now, what's also interesting is that same article will basically just ask extremely basic questions about the show, like what was going on with the invoices, and then have the answer to that question. So it's like, they basically like produced a summary of the entire show, so that anyone like typing in questions goes straight to Netflix's website now. Anyway, here is what is the deal with the very end of the show from Netflix.com. This is, I believe, the Tudum blog.
You didn't even read that in like Seinfeld voice, Dave. Give me if you're going to ask what is the deal.
Yeah. Initially, Lee Sung-jin planned to close the finale with Chairwoman Park's mournful speech at the grave of her late husband. But Lee realized that Park's words may not be the send-off season 2 needed. He says, even though the billionaire is regretful, she's not necessarily someone in our current climate that you want to root for and be like, thanks for that lesson, evil billionaire. Lee said this, by the way, on Beef, the official podcast. After all, Park orchestrates the death of her stepson, Whoosh, covers up a malpractice death at her husband, Dr. Kim's soul clinic, has said husband killed, and abducts our two central couples, among many other crimes. So Lee, director Jake Schreier, production designer Grace Yuan, and the rest of the Beef team put together their collective brains to come up with the perfect final shot of season 2. The image is inspired by the Samsara paintings Lee looked at while writing the episodes. Samsara is the Buddhist and Hindu belief in a continuous cycle of eternal love and life and suffering. As Lee explains, the paintings are presided over by the god of death and have this circle with these vignettes of life. In Beef's version of Samsara, we see slices of the cast's journey. Austin and Ashley lounging on chairs, Josh and Lindsay arguing, Troy and Ava sitting at a table. As the camera spins above these vignettes, you can hear recognizable dialogue from earlier in the season, as well as the chatter that comes with a life lived fully. A visible illusion, as Phoenix says. Indeed. So, what do you think, Chris? What do you think? What do you think of the ending? Did this land the point of Samsara? Did you think deeply about Samsara while watching the final shots of Beef season 2?
I cannot say that I did, but that may be just a point of there being so much plot machination as we've discussed, like happening in that final episode, that maybe a little more room for that extended metaphor to breathe would have helped me. Yeah. So
yeah, it to me felt like the show's reach exceeded its grasp a little bit, right? Like it wants to make this point about like, this is what relationships are like in marriage, and this is what late stage capitalism is like, and look at all these, like, everyone's kind of a scammer in a small way in the American economy or the international economy. Not even confined to America. It's also like in South Korea and other places. And then, by the way, have you ever noticed that life begets life, and it looks the same sometimes, and it echoes, it rhymes a little bit? And
so it sounds like you found that a little hacky, maybe. Like you're
hacky is not the right word. It's just more like very ambitious. And I felt like what was there didn't fully back it up. Like he's trying to make like, I felt like the marriage stuff was really well done, and the late stage capitalism stuff was decently done until the very end. And then this other point about like, hey, have you noticed like we're all just in the process of becoming a different thing? And there's this whole trend, by the way, of people seeing themselves as other people, right? You've noticed that, like Oscar Isaac sees himself as Troy and other people.
And that were right. Where the first time that happened, there was a bit of, I mean, I picked up on that was a device pretty quickly, but the first time I checked it, it's when Ash, I think it's the first time we see Whoosh, like Lindsay is looking at Whoosh, the hot tennis instructor who's, selling skincare products and turns out to be a relative of Chairman Park and right? But I mean, the first time we see Whoosh, it's from pretty far away, right? Lindsay is looking at him from far off the tennis court, and there is the scene where some younger women pass by her, and then we see a younger version of Lindsay dressed for tennis, right? And she looks over at Whoosh, and it's far enough away that I thought like that was maybe a flashback to her first meeting with Josh. Because we know that they met working at the club. I think certainly that Josh worked his way up from the lower rungs of the club.
I did not catch that, but there's multiple instances of it throughout the show. At the end, Charles Melton's character sees himself in the surgery room, and so many characters see themselves, and so I think there is this point that the show's trying to make about the interconnectedness of us all, and life and death, and the process and one leading to the next. For me, it did not fully land, and it sounds like for you, it did not fully land either. But let me know if I'm wrong about that, Chris.
I mean, but I mean, the seesaw is overwhelmingly tipped into the pro column here. I mean, we're getting fairly granular about the ways in which the finale was not a success, but certainly like I don't regret the 6.5 hour roughly I think cumulative investment at all.
Yeah, for sure. Any other memorable moments or ideas from the show that you want to bring up before we wrap up our time here, talking about Beef Season 2?
I want to say that I do agree with Austin vis-a-vis Gatorade, that in my personal experience, the colors don't affect the quench.
That is an awesome line from the show. The colors don't affect the quench.
I mean, you could just pull out little like there's a very funny moment where Josh is going to and again, like this, we've already brought up this idea of Josh feeling the need to keep up with his infinitely wealthier employers, basically, right? All the patrons of the club who treat him like a friend, and but come on, like he is a servant, right? He is not in their world at all, except when they choose to admit him under specific and limited circumstances. But he goes to talk to these power players in the steam room where they're enjoying their like eucalyptus infusion or whatever the hell. And of course he can't see who's speaking because the room is full of steam. So he keeps having to ask people to identify themselves like he's on a terrible conference call or something. And finally,
there are many well-directed scenes like that throughout the show that capture this social awkwardness that's inherent in these situations. I also like the scene where Carrie Mulligan's character goes to visit her lawyer friend's house and is trying to get some legal advice from her, right? And it's just like so painful, right?
Yeah, at the spoiled child's birthday party, and at one point the lawyer's kid like comes up and just whacks Lindsay with a foam bat or something, But
there's a lot of stuff like there's many scenes like that where somebody's in an awkward situation. I think you should leave style. They're in this awkward situation and it's very painful to extricate themselves from it. And I think the show does a really wonderful job of like,
and I mean, those work in isolation too. Like whether or not the as you said, like this is so massively ambitious that not every aspect of it connects. But the fact that we're in the midst of this larger, kind of satirical mosaic, able to get bits like that are like, you could watch them in isolation and they would still be pretty funny. It's like a little periodic reward for hanging in there, right? It's a water stop along the marathon. Here's your little cup of water. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, anyway, despite some of my reservations, more of the show was good than bad. And certainly there are several elements of the show that gave me a lot to think about particularly with regards to the late stage capitalism stuff. And also, as you said, Chris, pondering the difference between millennial relationships and Gen Z relationships and how those things might interact with each other. So lots to think about, and therefore cannot complain too much about Beef Season 2. All that said, I do want to thank Chris for joining me today. Chris Klimek is a culture critic whose work has appeared at NPR, The Washington Post, and The Atlantic. Chris, thanks for chatting with us at Decoding TV today.
Super fun, Dave. Thank you.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.